guess this is going to be my first show back after 2 years. I'm going to, well, here, let's introduce yourself to everybody.
Oh, well, hi, everybody. My name is Anthony Tola. I'm an expert ponerologist. I've run for United States Congress twice with the Constitution Party, and I founded Sovereignty Party of America. And I'm not trying to get overly political with this show. I'd most likely want to stick to the topic of ponerology and what I'm dealing with right now with an illegal, who I suspect may be an illegal immigrant, but is not an American citizen, has a lengthy enough record to be considered for deportation by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and is an alleged domestic violence abuser. And I'm trying to just warn the public and create some public awareness about this problem we're having on Long Island, specifically based out of Rockville Center, Long Island, because that's where the main perp, Sergei Tsytsarev, that's where he usually hangs out.
That's right, that's right. And what you were telling me earlier when we spoke on the phone about how after a certain amount of stuff, these guys are supposed to be deported, right?
Well, here's the thing. The way it works with ICE, if you're an American and you find somebody who's here who's not a citizen, if you can verify that they have two different arrest dates, they don't necessarily have to be convicted on these arrest dates. They just have to be arrested. And if the arrests happen to involve what's considered a violation of moral turpitude, which could be something as simple and as common as a DUI, DWI, that's considered a violation of moral turpitude. So, for example, the case I'm dealing with Sergei Tsytsarev, he does have two DWIs in two different states, two different arrest dates, two different convictions on his record, as well as a financial lien out of Colorado and another financial lien out of California that says forced entry detainer, which doesn't always indicate violence in a victim, but very often could. So he has a lot of aliases. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has confirmed that he does have a lot of aliases and that he does have this record, but they traditionally go through the files chronologically, which unfortunately doesn't always lend to optimal prioritization as far as, who's an immediate threat to either the community or the country. It's not always the best way to go about things. In some extreme cases, they will prioritize a file, and the more I've uncovered about this case, the more I'm starting to believe this warrants them prioritizing a file, because not only the original perp I'm after is involved, but through investigating him, his father, the same name, his father's business partner, and some people I found tied to his father's business partner, who were also tied to a big gang bust in Philadelphia in 2002. This is turning into a lot more than just a single criminal here. It's looking like I've stumbled onto some type of a crime ring, or at least what used to be, and I find it hard to believe that, a huge group of these guys all got arrested in 2002 and just, decided to, all get regular jobs at a Walmart or something, when they got out of jail or whatever. From what I'm able to see from investigating the information I could find on the people that aren't currently incarcerated that originally, did get hit with a 48-count indictment, it looks like they went back to, all the old ways, all the old signals, all the old places and the old lifestyle of, clubs and drugs and, violence. It's all there. Every brushstroke paints the picture. You can't look at any one single thing and say, well, this definitively tells me what's going on, but eventually if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, quacks like a duck, looks like a duck, chances are it's a duck.
So, but tell me, how did you even first come about all of this stuff?
It started as a domestic case, and these domestic cases when you're dealing with somebody who has antisocial personality disorder, which I strongly suspect this individual has, and in order to come to that conclusion, just so people know, there's a Pcl-R psychopathy checklist revised. It's been designed by Dr. Robert Hare, and if somebody gets a 75% score or higher, it's almost like if you had heard of being pre-qualified for a home loan. It's kind of like, well, if you score 75% or higher on this test, you're almost kind of sort of pre-qualified for diagnosis with antisocial personality disorder, which doesn't always mean that the person doesn't have social skills. That's a common misconception. It more means it's somebody that their amygdala doesn't function properly. They don't have a conscience. And to explain this to people, I often say, well, okay, you and I, we're both men, right? So we know a lot about what happens when a woman gives birth, but you and I, we can never fully understand what that is. And to a degree, we can get an idea, but we will never fully understand what that is. So similarly, when someone has antisocial personality disorder, especially on a biological level, which is claimed somewhere between 2 to 5% of the population, some people say as much as 6, various conditions come into that: location, time, culture, government, what have you. But it's a minority that has this biologically, but it's also a learned behavior. So in a set of circumstances like, say, Nazi Germany, that percentage spiked very high because normal people were getting sucked into an ideology that they never would have been sucked into had there not been the people with the biological, or the people who had learned the condition before the other people learning the condition before them had started. So it's essentially Ponerology is a study in the science and nature of evil, and kind of points at, if you've ever heard of one bad apple spoiling the whole bunch, kind of points at antisocial personality disorder being contagious, much like the common cold, if it's in the right circumstances to incubate and grow.
Man, it sounds like you really took the time to study into this.
Well, the book, Political Ponerology by Dr. Andrew Lobachevsky, certainly isn't easy reading by any means, but I've also read a lot of psychology books before that, just to name a few: Madman and the Bourgeoisie by Klaus Broner. I would also recommend Man in the Modern Age was a great one, Carl Jasper's. I've studied a lot of psychology for a long time. Ponerology came to my attention more recently. It is a newer field of psychology. It's not as recognized. It's a pretty thin field, which I guess is fortunate for me, is having a voice that gets a little more exposure, maybe, because if you write the word Ponerology in my name, Anthony Tolda, last name told, like past tense of tell, as if you had told someone something, and A at the end, T-O-L-D-A, and then write the word Ponerology after. The video I actually sent you earlier today about the microsocial example of Ponerology, that's the second one that pops up.
That was a very interesting video.
Yes, and I'm going to guess you've probably seen the movie Clerks, that is the opening scene that I used to begin explaining. I'm going to guess you've seen that before, am I right?
Yeah, I have, but I kind of forgot most of it by now.
Right. Now, that's the thing. I mean, it was a movie that was popular in the mid-'90s, and it wasn't really something that, that would have won an Oscar or anything, but it has a very popular following, and a lot of people, still remember and enjoy it. But this one scene, it's towards the beginning of the movie, and it probably a lot of people forget about it. If you ask somebody what they remember about the movie, they might tell you 20 different things before they would think of this. But this scene, it's a perfect example of a person who's behaving, showing these behavior patterns of antisocial personality disorder. He's framing the person who is in in opposition to him, not because this person in the scene wants to be in opposition to him, but he just happens to be due to circumstance. And he sees this person who's just trying to go about his daily business and, makes him look like some kind of, monster that's threatening to people, where really the guy's just, trying to stumble through life and get a paycheck and go home.
Yeah. Understood there, bud. Let's jump a little bit back to our conversation, though. You were talking about this doctor's office and stuff and screenshots on the that you had from the internet. Is that what?
That's part of the case. Yes, there's a so-called clinic in Brooklyn, and they do hypnosis.
Sorry, go ahead.
They do hypnosis, and it's also known as neuro-linguistic programming. And I'd like to note to people that there's a board of hypnotists that have actually said that yes, Obama has used neuro-linguistic programming, and there's a lot of information out there. If you look up Hitler and neuro-linguistic programming, that was really the advent of it on such a larger level, because when Hitler was rising to power, radio was coming around, TV was coming around, and there had never been an ability to communicate with so many people on a level like that for somebody involved in politics.
That's right. That's a very good way of looking at it.
And a lot of it has to do with the strength of emotion that they present with. It draws people in. And they have this ability to spout whatever it is, that they want. They make themselves look like they're helping, and they're really not. And they're actually harming. And they have this way of converting people to behave just like them, based on appealing to their sense of survival in some way, shape, or form. Like, painting this picture for them, you're in danger, be like me, be subservient to me, and you won't be in danger anymore. And these people get sucked into it. It's very sad. And Aldous Huxley, he said that he had a great speech once, and part of it he was discussing what they noticed with some self-help records. And this was back, during when records was pretty much your only option, or radio. And so he said, well, 20% of the people that bought the records were happy, and, it helped them, and they never said anything. 60% of the people, maybe would need, repeated usage of the record for it to help them out. And, maybe some of them wrote letters and some of them didn't. And, everybody that wrote a letter got one back saying, oh, just try it a couple more times or something. But approximately 20% of the people, there was no convincing them at all. It was just all a bunch of nonsense. So essentially what he was getting at is, according to some type of data he considered valid at least, that the 20% of people are controllable quite easily and suggestible quite easily. 20% of the exact opposite of that, you could pretty much forget about it. And 60% in the middle, you have mixed results with repetition.
Well, I think some of this is even used in everyday television. Like what people watch on TV, there's hints of it in some types of commercials and stuff like that. I'm sure I've seen some stuff that's just not quite right, and some of the stuff, and then I'm sure I've noticed quite a lot of stupidity in the commercials today. That's for sure.
Well, they call it programming for a reason. The name wasn't picked out of a hat, and when you think of the term neuro-linguistic programming, that's what hypnosis is.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why they call it the PBS, television network programming, right? Programming. The programmer is in there.
Well, sure, they're telling you what they're doing, but the general public is, by and large, more familiar with the term hypnosis. They're much less familiar with neuro-linguistic programming, and it's not just because it's a longer name. It's because it's easier for the people controlling information, whether they be from media, corporations, government, or a mixture. It's easier for them, for the general public, to hear the term hypnosis more than they would hear the term neuro-linguistic programming. But anybody that does the research on neuro-linguistic programming can see that, the more you look into it, the more you can see it going on in politics with corporations, and even maybe, in daily life, the way...
Maybe that's even how the assassinations happened. Like, that's probably it, right?
Well, a lot of them, I'm sure. I mean, the point is that people with antisocial personality disorder, they don't have a conscience. They don't have remorse. So just imagine, as I was saying earlier, as men, we can never fully understand childbirth. No person with a conscience can fully understand not having a conscience, aside from, maybe watching horror movies, and that's, a lot of people think the term sociopath, psychopath, they think horror movies, Jason, Michael Myers, all of this stuff, but that's a very small minority of people in that spectrum. The most successful ones of them, they don't get caught. They're not as overt as these characters in horror movies. They might be capable and competent and willing to perpetrate the same crimes, but the frequency would probably be less, or the means that they did it with would be so much more easy to cover up, so much more tight intellectually.
Okay, but here's another question. If people can be programmed, right, or hypnotized, do you think that they can be, like, in a sense, deprogrammed?
Absolutely, and the book Political Ponerology does mention that, and it says something along the lines of, after the initial shock and disintegration, passes through the individual's psyche, and, they realize once it's been explained to them what has gone on, then you can very often retrieve a conscience of somebody who's become subject to a ponerogenic process. So this is important because it points towards a very high likelihood of rehabilitation in regards to adult short to medium term, and this is just my opinion, adult short to medium term cases as a learned behavior or as an apath behavior that just kind of gets sucked into it. Apath kind of means, well, you don't really care either way, and you're not really consciously trying to help, but it's maybe more convenient for these certain types of people to just go with the flow. It doesn't necessarily mean they didn't be on that ASPD spectrum, but it involves them in that type of behavior, and they learn it. So there's retrievable moral compass in so many learned adult cases. The shorter period of time they've been engaging in these behaviors, better. But when you're looking at biological cases or learned cases from birth, then your chances of rehabilitating are pretty much near zero.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. I guess, right? Because it's so pumped into your brain.
Well, if it's a biological condition, you're born with the brain. It's wired differently. The amygdala doesn't work the same way.
The chemicals don't have the same balance as everybody else, or.
Sure. I mean, pick whatever you think to you. I would rather not even give an example verbally because I don't even want to participate in that. But
yeah.
Go to an extreme, but pick a graphic image. Whoever the listener, it's almost like you ever hear Ghostbusters where they say don't think of anything, and he thinks of the stage puff Marshmallow Man. So okay, I guess
yeah,
stage puff Marshmallow Man.
That's a good comparison, my brother. That's funny.
Well, it also points out in the book Political Ponerology that humor is very helpful to the healing process, and I'm a complete believer that laughter is the best medicine, specifically with problems of the mind and ponerology. So picture the stage puff Marshmallow Man. He's going crazy, and your amygdala is going to go off because something's wrong and there's danger. With someone with antisocial personality disorder, the amygdala is just another day. Like pour me another drink. I'm busy. Who cares? Kind of thing. Or they're running around wearing stage puff Marshmallow Man T-shirts saying I hope this guy marshmallows everything or whatever it is he does.
Yeah. So exactly out of all that you do, what is your message in short that you're trying to get out to everybody?
Well, we have this later, I filed on him on Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and he's targeted, at least I know of, 2 local women whom I've been keeping their identities anonymous. And through what I've looked at the website from his father and his father's business partner, what's peppered in on this is really strange. And knowing what I know about neurolinguistic programming and reading what I'm reading on the blog on this website, I'm like thinking to myself, well, you know, I read in this book about neurolinguistic programming used for dark purposes, and if I ever saw somebody using it for dark purposes, it would completely make sense that they would use the little bit of programming that they're using peppered in with these blogs, paired with their first introductory session for free, to try to weed out potential victims. And when you look at the screenshots, it's ridiculous. It's one of them says something about, well, a woman wants to be a butterfly in a field of blueberries, and she might be more inclined to pretend to like things she doesn't to impress a man. And so the examples they list, the first 2 aren't that strange, and the third, I think, is a little strange. They say, well, you know, if a man tells her that he loves home cooking and football and group sex, that, you know, she might not like any of these things, but to make him happy, she'll say, oh, well, I love the kitchen. I wish I was in there all day, and, you know, I never miss a football game. I love this team, or I love group sex. My only wish is to invite my best friend. And so, to me, I mean, as someone, okay, I'm an expert ponerologist, right? I don't really technically see any patients. If I know someone personally that needs help, and I've met several, you know, people who have had problems, victims of certain things.
Who doesn't?
And male, and I've given plenty of people counseling, but I don't charge anybody. But to peer review somebody, knowing what I know, you know, psychologically, about psychology rather, and looking at what's going on with this clinic and their behaviors and the things that are peppered in, there's something very unethical about peppering group sex into a neurolinguistic programming website. And not to mention that, it's no one single brushstroke paints the whole picture, but there's also references to, you know, well, if you're underage, you know, don't worry, it means you have a lot of life experience, which is, it's completely contradictory. If you're underage, you wouldn't have a lot of life experience. That's why you
I was just about to say that, exactly.
Yeah, so when you're looking at, and the guy who wrote this stuff, you know, the father of Sergei Tsytsarev Jr., his business partner, his father has the same name, but his business partner wrote this stuff, and I found out that he's been convicted of grand larceny. He had his license suspended for 3 years, and he just hopped states from New Jersey to New York to be able to continue to practice, and that's considered acceptable under our current system. And here he has this wacky website with references to group sex, divorcees, underage women, and at one point it says, well, don't judge a man based on his behaviors because it doesn't show his full personality. It depends on the circumstances and just separate events. And it says, quote unquote, you know, every man can be a weakling, gigolo, or bastard sometimes. So it's if you're looking at somebody who knows what I know about, you know, psychologically profiling a criminal, and you're looking at someone with a criminal record who's affiliated with several other people with criminal records, and running a hypnosis clinic out of Brooklyn that also happens to, you know, prescribe Suboxone and Methadone, and they're peppering in all this wacky stuff on their hypnosis neurolinguistic programming blog. It gets to a point where it's like, well, this looks like a duck, and it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck. I'm pretty sure this is a duck.
I just can't believe that because you're in the States, right? This is the American government, and this guy's still in practice?
You know, it's unbelievable to me, and, you know, I know you and I, you know, we've had a little bit of talk off air. We chatted a bit about MK Ultra, and, you know, MK Ultra is government government experiments in mind control. And it began when our government purchased, Nazi scientists from Nazi Germany, and they felt like their choice was, okay, well, if we don't give these people leniency and bring them over here and give them a life, then they're going to go to Russia and they're going to give them all the intelligence, and America's going to be left behind. So they pardoned some people that some very horrific things to come here, and they figured, oh well, if we can keep an eye on this person here, and hopefully, they don't do too much damage while they're here, they'll do less damage and, they could do from abroad.
And that is true, because I see it's all over the internet. It's been exposed that they did buy these doctors and scientists from Germany, back from the German War.
It was even in the new Captain America movie. That's how mainstream the concept is.
Mm-hmm.
But the doctors in the case, or the so-called doctors in the case that I'm dealing with, they came over from Russia shortly after the USSR collapsed. So, I don't have any definitive documents that tells me that these people are MK Ultra. But when I look into the fact that they're into neuro-linguistic programming / hypnosis, the fact that they're prescribing methadone and Suboxone, and the fact that the one partner has a significant record, including technically I believe it's a Class E felony, which is the lowest form of felony, Class E, Class D, whatever it is, grand larceny in a 4th degree. He's still a convicted felon. The man can't vote if he even became a citizen. I'm not sure if he did or he didn't, or if he entered the country legally or not. But the man can't vote, but he can seek out and treat female patients.
That's odd.
References to group sex and underage females and divorcees on his website, and pepper in something that says any man can act like a weakling, gigolo, or bastard sometimes, and don't hold it against them if it's not its real personality. This is crazy. I'm of the opinion that America's biggest export should be criminal illegal immigrants, and unfortunately, it's our second biggest import behind debt. And the only reason they're second behind debt is because they contribute to the debt as a part of the whole.
That's right. See, and people don't see this every day. A lot of people, they think, oh, life is just white picket fences, and I just do my daily routine of waking up, showering, brushing my teeth, shaving, and going to work, and then coming back.
Sure. I'm a martial artist, and, martial arts teaches peace, it teaches balance, patience.
See, and people need this kind of stuff.
Right, and it's extremely peaceful, especially Aikido, and the style I'm trained in has a lot to do with, pepperings in and philosophy of Aikido, and it's all about controlling your opponent without actually hurting them, taking complete control but not actually causing harm. And if we had a world full of people, if we took all the kumbaya people and taught them, okay, hold on to the kumbaya, but learn that you have to take control to balance things, to balance out evil, because, you completely not taking action and the kumbaya stuff, maybe it has, some underlying effect, yes, but no. You need people that are competent and capable to take action and control a situation, because if people of good conscience aren't controlling and shaping things in communities, in households, in governments, in corporations, in this world, any social system, if you're not a good person who's taking action to shape things, not in a controlling, dominating way to the point where you don't allow for positive growth, but if you can spot these signs of manipulation, of evil, if you're trained to look for this behavior, fence sitting, doesn't work. It doesn't help anybody. It may seem to help someone, who's not getting involved in the short term, but longer term, it's not a good thing.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Because people that have the condition of antisocial personality disorder, you're either an opponent, you're either a victim, or you're an opponent who's about to become a victim, or you're an asset leverage-wise towards going after an opponent or a victim, in which case makes you, victim.
But this is becoming very common too. It seems to be spreading like a wild disease.
I absolutely believe that it's known as a learned and as a biological behavior. So we know that this can spread like a disease. It's just not often verbalized that yes, okay, not the same as if you stand next to somebody and they sneeze. Okay, you'll catch a common cold. But if you're in a work relationship that you're dealing with this type of personality this time, or you're specifically, and I would think, most effectively, your immediate family, if you're living with your immediate family or a significant other, if you're living with a significant other that has this problem, those cases, the more exposure you have, the more likely you would be to engage in these behaviors, because it's a repetition. Getting back to the Aldous Huxley principle of, okay, that middle 60% to varying degrees with repetition will assimilate. So you're talking about between the 20% that it's very easy for them to assimilate, and the 60% that to varying degrees you'll have success with assimilating. You're dealing with, about as a rough number, 80% of the population to some degree suggestible. And when you look at the ramifications and the potentials of this on the macro-social level as opposed to the micro-social, like what I'm dealing with, this would be more macro-social, looking at Nazi Germany, looking at the treatment and the behavior of our government here in America, of the people. There was an 85-year-old woman who was strip searched at JFK Airport a few years back. I mean, it's completely ridiculous, but if somebody from a country who is known to, have a large population of people hostile to America comes over, if an 85-year-old woman came over, wearing a full burqa getup, they have policies where, they're barely allowed to even check for anything, so who knows what could be going on. So now the TSA has a policy where they're disrespecting American citizens and giving hall passes to people from countries hostile to America. It's like, you couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up if you tried.
Do you think they're doing this on purpose, though? Like, somebody couldn't be that stupid. Like, come on.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, a lot of these people are supposedly well educated. How could you not know what you're doing? And how could this many people possibly be that stupid? But it's like, well, okay, let's say that you don't believe this nonsense is happening on purpose. Like, how much more different would you expect it to look like if this nonsense was happening on purpose? Like, how much more could be done to blatantly, like, just throw, all this nonsense in front of someone? Say, it's either you're not paying attention or you just don't have a thought process that works, or a little bit of both. I don't know, but it's so overwhelmingly obvious when one takes time to, look at evidence of all this different nonsense that particularly America deals with, from, financing things that are ridiculous, wars where, I mean, today, I saw a report of Iraqi fighter pilots that were quote unquote new and untrained, something like that, new and something to the fighting force, actually dropped supplies off to the ISIS militants that we're supposed to be opposing. And it's like, well, if they're new and they're there, like, how do you know they're not infiltrators? Why are we funding them in the first place? Like, and how come we're all over, trying to look after this stuff when, nobody's securing the borders? It's like, okay, if you lived in a really bad neighborhood and everybody had bars on all the windows, like, would you leave the front and back door open and start kicking in other people's back doors? Like, it wouldn't make any sense, because you self-destruct within, a short amount of time. And, being that, okay, this is such a larger scale, okay, that's not going to happen, overnight or over the period of a week or whatever period it would take in the scenario that I just mentioned. But, it's something that the more you do it, I mean, the greater the risk gets. And okay, maybe it won't be a total loss from whatever damages received are, but it's almost like setting a course for damage and just not caring. Like, okay, I'll crash Daddy's car because he owns 100 cars. It's like a spoiled rich kid, and that's really what I view as like our entire government. It's just a bunch of spoiled rich kids spending Daddy's money. But the problem is, Daddy doesn't have money. Daddy's the average American citizen who unfortunately is paying the income tax.
Well, we got exactly 9 minutes left. So, should we go back to the clinic, though, just to, and give a little bit more detail, just to forewarn some people that are in the area of this place, maybe, possibly? Does that sound like a good idea?
Sure. They're based out of Brooklyn. They do neurolinguistic programming, and they also prescribe methadone and Suboxone.
See, that's kind of weird because the methadone, or Oxycontins, I think it is, are banned from here. Like we can't even get those. Those are totally illegal now. They're not even prescribed here by doctors anymore.
Huh. Well, I don't know about if they're prescribing those at all, but I know that they definitely have prescriptions for methadone and Suboxone, and they're Empire Psychiatric out of Brooklyn, New York.
And for people that don't understand that are listening right now, what methadone is more like it's liquid form of heroin, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's what it's prescribed for. People that are trying to wean themselves off of opiates, but when you combine it with a context where they're doing neurolinguistic programming, or all of this suggestive programming regarding certain types of women is peppered in with their blogs, plus looking at the man who wrote these blogs having a criminal record, and them pretty much all coming over from USSR collapse just after, combined with knowledge of MK Ultra, and that being people who came over just after World War II from Germany, and MK Ultra was mind control using drugs. It was a mixture, and many of the experiments involved LSD. So, perhaps their experiments have to do, with the methadone Suboxone, and they just, mix the two. Okay, well, you need this prescription for Suboxone, right? And you're addicted to methadone or Suboxone, you're addicted to opiates, so you need to come to this clinic for the prescription. You may as well get the hypnosis. The government's probably paying for the hypnosis sessions, or for some of them at least, if not, the individuals pay for them. And so between the person being under the influence of the prescription, being bound to come back there, being subjected to the hypnosis, I mean, there's not really a better set of conditions for guys like these to find victims. And when I look at the behavior of the original perpetrator, his alleged behavior, which I have screenshots of, the testimony of the women who turned his name into me, telling me about his behavior. So one of his victims, and plus the indictment I told you about with the gang in Philadelphia, too, one of their counts. And
you're going to be re-editing this audio recording so that we can show those screenshots to the people.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. The screenshots will be involved, but there seems to be a common theme between the gang bust in 02 in Philadelphia, and an incident of robbing a couple of women, and that's where the kidnapping charge came from also. Plus other accounts of that gang being violent, and then between the peppering in of seeming to try to weed out a certain type of woman in these blogs. In picture 2, they're giving the first session free, and it's a group session, so they do a couple of things, neurolinguistic programming in a group setting, maybe, shake a hand and give like an extra gesture, like touching an elbow at the same time, something else to try to lower the defenses.
Yeah,
and it's, right. Go to this website and look at my blogs and read the blogs and then come back. And if a woman actually reads these blogs and sees the peppering in of the group sex and the underage thing and the divorcee thing, and there's another mention.
And ladies and gentlemen, when we show you this stuff, we're not promoting it, by the way. We're just here to try to expose it in ways. So don't take it as a way of promoting. We're not promoting this trash or garbage in any way, shape, or form. Right.
We think it's a bad thing, and you know, it seems to be certain types. It almost seems like if somebody peppered in perfectly into a website how they wanted to weed out certain categories of victims, you know, I don't see what else they would, you know, possibly write. I mean, if you look at this, bestnyhypnosis.com is the website.
Well, okay, and with 4 minutes left, I just wanted to ask, you know what my idea of why they prescribe these drugs is probably because there's people that have these mental barriers that are harder to crack, so I'm sure that they use these types of drugs so it's easier for them to go under the hypnosis and so on. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, that's what the whole MK Ultra premise was about, was the mixture of certain different things, one of them being sensory deprivation. So I'd be very interested to know if these guys over there ever mix that in with what they do. But the three big things were, you know, drugs, sensory deprivation, and programming. So, you know, they would get someone on an extremely high dose of LSD, put them in a dark room, and it would maybe have no sounds for hours on end, but it also more likely would have you know, a programming sound that they would have to listen to for hours on end. But sometimes it would just be silent and dark, so that the psychedelic drug would just take full effect on the mind, and the mind would remain unoccupied, so just run through the programming over and over and over again. It's really it's really concerning how deeply that somebody can be psychologically damaged by somebody that knows these things and utilizes this knowledge in the wrong way.
Yes. It's pretty bad, and it's very scary. And ladies and gentlemen, I really want you to pay attention to that. You're going to continue investigating also this clinic, right?
Yes, the clinic is part of the investigation, absolutely. I don't believe they should be allowed to practice at all in America. I certainly don't like them practicing in New York City. When I live in Long Island, you know, I know and care about a lot of people close to this place. I don't want them anywhere in America, but, you know, to have them in a place that you consider your own backyard, you know, the term "not on my watch" comes to mind, and, you know, I'm not going to stop anytime soon. And Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you know, they seem to have taken an interest in the root of this case, and I've explained to them some further details, and that seems to have sparked some interest also. So, you know, I could hope for the best. There's only so much I could do as one man, but at the very least, if I can continue to publicly expose these people, you know, hopefully I could at least, you know, curb the harmful effect they have on others. If more people know to stay away from them, you know, then it thins their pool of potential victims. That's the best I could do, I suppose. You know, I'm here to do it.
That's right. That's good to hear. And we want to hear more about it. I thank you for coming on the show tonight. This is my first show, like I said, after 2 years of taking a break. And I'm definitely glad to be back, and I'm glad to have you as my first guest. It's an honor, so thank you for coming on the show, and I want to hear you come back on again and fill me in some more about this clinic when you get some more information.
That sounds great. Thank you for having me on.
All right, thank you, and make sure you share the show. Have yourself a good night.
John Anderson, hey. A rat coming your way. He be hosting shows, exposing true corruption, yo. 100% support for survivors. Thousands around all the globe, yeah. All sex offenders exposed, yeah. This is so you gotta know, yeah. A team of members all behind them. They believe that they won't lie to them. The whole corrupt system, he about to get up in them. They just can't handle though. So I had to spit the flow. They tryna cage him, but they ain't gonna get him. I said they tryna cage him, but they ain't gonna get him, yeah.